So one thing I found kind of annoying but also interesting is not everyone is at the same place you're at. Some people know a lot more or have figured out a lot more about life than what you figured out in some areas and a lot less in others. So for me personally, whenever I have some realization and I think that this is like some new revelation that like no one else has ever come up with, and I'm like, this is brilliant, and then I go share it with someone, my brother, one of my friends, and they're like, yeah, like, what do you mean you figured this? Dude, like, how do you not know this? I'm like, this is common knowledge. Like, do you know how much, like, do you know how much, like, not knowing this has affected my life? And then in some other areas where it's sorting, organization, just areas I'm really, really good at, time management to certain degrees, but they'll just be talking to me and I'll just be saying something and they're like, oh my god, that's amazing. I'm like, bro, like, what? I'm like, bucket sort is amazing. It's just like, I have a video talking about it, but it's just the best sorting algorithm for using the least amount of time and not losing stuff. But I'll drop a link to the video in the description below. But I'm like, yeah, man, like, what do you mean? Like, you never realized that, like, how to optimize your sorting? And I think it's funny. It's one of the beautiful things about humanity, how it's one thing that you really learn when you start talking to other people more about more in-depth topics than just what's on TV, how their week is. When you start being like, hey man, what's one thing about life you learned in the past year? And you just get into these conversations and you can learn so much. And it's something that I both don't exactly enjoy admitting, that I have vast areas that I'm lacking in, which is what I'm learning about and documenting with the channel. But it's also like what makes life enjoyable is discovering all this knowledge. And for a lot of people, you need to realize the big giant breakthrough you just had, someone else has almost always had that already, which is one of the benefits I'm realizing to reading more books and not necessarily limiting yourself to cutting out audiobooks and cutting out YouTube like I'm doing right now. But the whole point of my experiment, and for those who don't know, because I'm probably going to release this video as a standalone instead of part of my detox, technology detoxing, I'm going without YouTube. Well, I'm not going to be watching YouTube, not going to be watching Instagram, any social media, any TV, or listening to any audiobooks, just a single hour of reading a day, and for the next month, to kind of detox the dopamine levels in my head and to make it so I don't chase distraction or always chase something to watch or to be listening to. And from the experiment so far, one of my major takeaways has just been mindful eating, which, like, having an intent for the food to nourish you and putting good energy into the food when you make it, and then mindfully consuming the food, and just makes the flavor and everything else associated with eating so much more enjoyable. But for some reason, I never did this before. I kind of just tried to eat as fast as I could. And I look up mindful eating, and there's many resources talking about this. I'm like, how is this something that I just realized, but there's so much information out there on? It's just, yeah. Anyways, I'm documenting my journey through learning about the world, learning more about mindfulness, consciousness, and life. So if any of this interests you, like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment if you have any specific topics you want me to talk about.